Dear students, I welcome you all to the class of English Compulsory BA second year. We have been dealing with the story entitled The Lost Child, written by MULK ANAND. The title of the story is significant because the central character of the story is a small child. The entire story moves around the child because the child is the central character of this story. The Lost Child depicts a overjoyed, enthusiastic, and excited child who is on the way to the fair along with his parents. As he is being taken by his parents to the fair, there is no bound to his happiness. He is on the way to the fair and he comes across number of attractive things, and he keeps on demanding at his father. But his father does not think of his emotions. Moreover, he looks at him with red eyes. Mother understands the nature of his father, so she tries to divert his attention from the thing which he is demanding. As he is on the way to the fair, he comes across butterflies, honeybees, dragonflies, beautiful yellow flowers, doves, and fallen flowers as well. The child is over enthusiastic. As he comes across particular thing of attraction, he forgets the thing which he concentrated before. He looks at the shop of toys and he thinks of having them, so he demands at his father. He comes across does and starts running after the does. He comes across fallen flowers and he starts collecting fallen flowers. He comes across edge of yellow flowers, zooming dragonflies over the flowers, honeybees and butterflies. He forgets everything and starts running after them. As the child is lagging behind, his mother calls him and he forgets the things and runs and joins with his parents. Finally, he comes across the balloon seller selling balloons of different colors. The child or the boy saw the balloons and he was attracted towards them because the balloons were shiny, colored, and he wanted all of them. He knew that his parents would not buy the balloons because he was too old to play with the balloons. He moved on and came across a snake charmer. He was playing a flute to a snake, and the snake coiled itself in a basket. Its head raised in a graceful bend, like the neck of a swan. The child went towards the snake charmer, but moved on immediately because his parents had forbidden him to hear coarse music. There was a roundabout in full swing. Men and women and children carried away in a whirling motion. Shrieked and cried with dizzy laughter. The child watched them intently, and then he made a bold request. I want to go on the roundabout, please, father and mother. There was no reply. He turned to look at his parents. They were not there. Ahead of him, he turned to look on either side. They were not there. He looked behind. There was no sign of them. A full deep cry rose within his dry throat, and with a sudden jerk of his body, he ran from where he stood, crying in real fear, Mother, Father. Tears rolled down from his eyes, hot and fierce. His flushed face was convulsed with fear, panic stricken. He ran to one side first, then to the other, hither and thither in all directions, knowing not where to go. Mother, father, he wailed. His yellow turban came united, came untied, and his clothes became muddy. The child came across roundabout in full swing. Men, women, and children were enjoying swing, and the child stood there watching them. After a while, the child turned back, and to his shock, his parents were not there. So he was bewildered. He was afraid of being alone without his parents. So he started running hither and thither in search of them. He was crying. His throat was dry. He was shouting, Mother and Father, and his yellow turban came untied and his clothes became muddy. He was running hither and thither in search of his parents. Having run to and fro in a range of running for a while, he stood defeated, his cries suppressed into sobs. At little distance on the green grass he could see, through his filmy eyes, men and women talking. He tried to look intently among the patches of bright yellow clothes, but there was no sign of his father and mother among these people, who seemed to laugh and talk just for the sake of laughing and talking. He ran quickly again, this time to a shrine to which people seemed to be crowding. Every little inch of space here was congested with men, but he ran through people's legs, his little sob lingering. Mother, father, near the entrance to the temple, however, the crowd became very thick. Men jolted each other, heavy men with flashing, murderous eyes and hefty shoulders. The poor child struggled to thrust a way between their feet, but knocked to and fro by their brutal movements. He might have been trampled underfoot had he not shrieked at the highest pitch of his voice, Father, Mother. A man in the surging crowd heard his cry, and stood with great difficulty lifted him up in his arm. So, dear friends, the child was bewildered. He was afraid, being alone. He was running here and there in search of his parents. He looked at every direction. Finally, there was a temple which was crowded, and they were struggling to enter. The child decided to search his parents in the temple. So the child uh, found his way in the temple through the legs of the people. Mulk Anand has very skillfully depicted the scenario in the temple. As it was crowded, and strong and healthy people, they were pushing weak people aside and they were going ahead. Through that crowd, the child tried to find his parents, and the temple was crowded and there was noisy atmosphere. Still, the child gathered courage, gathered strength, and was shouting, "Father, mother," and was crying. There was a gentleman who noticed the cry of the child, and he came forward and he lifted the child on his arm. He asked the child, "How did you get here, child? Whose baby are you?" The man asked as he strayed clear of the mass. The child wept more bitterly than ever now and only cried, "I want my mother, I want my father." That generous gentleman took the child on his arm and he tried to console his crying or throbbing heart, and he asked about his parentage. He asked him where he is about. He asked about his parentage, and the child did not answer his question. Moreover, child started crying more loudly, and the child was asking for his parents. "I want my child. I want my mother. I want my father." The man cried to the soothe him by taking him to the roundabout. "Will you have a ride on the horse?" he gently asked as he approached the ring. The man, he tried his best to give comfort to the crying child. He took him to the roundabout and he asked him whether he would like to ride on the horse in the roundabout. The child's throat tore into a thousand shrill shouts and he only shouted, "I want my mother, I want my father." The child was concerned about his parents. He did not want to ride on the horse. Finally, the man took him to the snake charmer. He thought that seeing the snake and listening to the music seized by the flute of the charmer, the child may get comfort, but still the child was crying, and the child did not listen to the music, nice music played by the snake charmer, and he wanted his parents. He was asking for his mother and he was asking for his father. The man headed towards the place where the snake charmer still played on the flute to the swaying cobra. "Listen to that nice music, child," he pleaded. The man took the child to the snake charmer who was playing his music, and his cobra was uh, swinging. The cobra was swinging along with the music being played by the snake charmer. But the child shut his ears with his fingers and shouted his double pitch strain, "I want my mother, I want my father." The man took him near to the balloons, thinking the bright colors of the balloons would distract the child's attention and quieten him. "Would you like to rainbow colored balloon?" he persuasively asked. The child turned his eyes from the flying balloons and just sobbed, "I want my mother, I want my father." So this gentleman tried to console the child, taking him to the roundabout, taking him to the snake charmer, taking him to the balloon seller. He asked the child to ride the horse, but the child did not show interest in riding the horse. Moreover, he started crying and he started shouting, saying that, "I want my mother, I want my father." The man took him to the snake charmer, thinking that the child would be happy, saying the snake, snake charmer, and listening to the sweet music being seized by the snake charmer. But what happened was against the will and pleasure of that gentleman. The child put his hands on his ears, and he did not pay attention towards the snake or snake charmer, and started crying and started saying, I want my mother, I want my father. Finally, this gentleman took the child to the balloon sellers who was having beautiful different colored balloons. The gentleman thought child would be happy seeing the flying balloons, but the child did not look at the balloons. He turned his eyes from the flying balloons and he started crying again, and he started saying, I want my child, I want my mother, I want my father. The man, still trying to make the child happy, bore him to the gate where the flower seller sat. Look, can you smell those nice flowers, child? Would you like a garland to put around your neck? So finally, the man took him to the gate where a flower seller was sitting with full of flowers in the baskets. There were beautiful garlands of the flowers, and the man asked the child whether he would like to put those beautiful flower garlands around his neck. The child turned his nose away from the basket and reiterated his sob. I want my mother, I want my father. Still, the child did not find pleasure in the beautiful flowers. The child did not smell those beautiful flowers, and he started asking for his parents. He was sobbing, he was crying and saying, I want my mother, I want my father. Thinking to humor his disconsolate charge by a gift of sweets, the man took him to the counter of the sweet shop. What sweets would you like to child? Would you like, child? He asked. Finally, the man took him to the sweet vendor who was having different varieties of sweets. And the gentleman thought the sweet may give pleasure to the child. So he asked the child, what kind of sweet would you like to have? But still, the child turned his face from the sweets and only sobbed and was saying, I want my mother, I want my father. So, friends, here the story ends. In the beginning, we saw a small child is on the way to the fair along with his parents. He is very happy, very excited. There is no bound to his happiness. On the way to the fair, he comes across different kinds of things, such as he comes across toys, different varieties of toys. He comes across some natural elements such as yellow flowers, honeybees, butterflies, dragonflies, fallen flowers. He runs after the doors, and he is every now and then attracted towards the thing. He demands at his father, but finally realizes that his father may not fulfill his wish or may not fulfill his desire. Finally, he reaches to the fair where there is a roundabout. He is very happy, he is very excited to see that roundabout. He stands there watching men, women, and children enjoying roundabout. And after a while, when he turns back, he is shocked to see his parents disappeared. He starts running hither and thither in search of his parents. He tries to find them in the crowded temple. He enters the temple through the legs of the people, where the strong people were making their ways with their strong shoulders. And the child, he tried to find his parents in that crowd. He was shouting. It was a noisy place, and the child was shouting for his parents. There was a gentleman who noticed the helplessness of the child. He put the child on his arms and tried to console him. At the outset, he asked him his name, he asked him about his parentage, he asked him about his address, etc., and he tried to console the child. At the outset, he took him to the roundabout and he asked him to ride the horse. But the child did not show any interest and he was asking repeatedly about his mother and father. Then the gentleman took him to the balloon seller, he took him to the snake charmer, he took him to the flowers seller, he took him to the sweet vendor, but still the child was not happy with the things which were being offered by the gentleman to make him happy or to make him to stop his cry. He was repeatedly asking for his parents. He was saying, I want my mother, I want my father, and this is how this story ends here. To sum up, I would like to uh, focus on certain points. The Lost Child is the story of a small child who gets lost in the fair. He had gone with his parents to the fair but loses them when he gets attracted to roundabout swing. The story highlights the bond of love and affection that the child shares with his parents. Before losing them, he had been demanding different things like toys, sweets, balloons, flowers, swings, etc. Once he loses them, he is picked by a stranger. The stranger tries to quieten the child by offering him all these things that he had demanded from his parents, but the child does not want them any more now because he wants his parents only. So, the present story, The Lost Child, shows strong bondage between child and his parents. In other words, I would like to interpret or I would like to say the present story focuses on the importance of parents in the life of children. So friends, with this let me declare that the study of this story, The Lost Child, written by MULK ANAND, is over. In the following class, we shall deal with another story, The Model Millionaire, written by Oscar Wilde, elaborately. With this, I would like to remain here. Rest of the things shall be continued in the next period. Thank you very much.